Well, I've just finished installing the Ikea vanity and sink. You see here the attempt to say the Törnviken, the Dalskär, and of course the Godmorgon. And I was helped by a few videos on YouTube, so I figured I'd repay the favor and go through my own installation trials and tribulations and let you know what I thought and what I found helpful and useful. And just review the whole thing a bit too. As you can see, there's also the Ikea towel rack and nice bamboo soap dispenser. Anyway, so let's start from the top, shall we? The faucet, nice look to it, I suppose. Flows really nicely, like it's very well aerated, so that's good. One weird thing, I thought it was a flaw at first. You'll see the handle goes from here to here, which is a bit unusual. Usually it goes from about here to the same in the other direction. So I figured, okay, there's something wrong, and I tried to take it off and reposition it, but that wouldn't work. And then I finally found a note in the packaging of the faucet explaining it. So it turns out that the concept is that, okay, most people will probably turn it on in about that position to get sort of warmish water. And of course, in most houses, it could take 10, 20, 30 seconds for the hot water to get to you. So, people will just turn it on and wash their hands when it's kind of cold anyway and turn it off, and they've sort of wasted the hot water because it's started to come out of the water heater, but it never actually gets to the faucet. So that's the thinking, is that it will save hot water. But if you know and you really want hot water, you know to put it here. So, okay, that's fine, no problem. I don't mind that. What else? I would suggest being very careful with the sink. It's a good solid sink, but you can perhaps see there's a couple of little marks there already, and some marks around the base there. That's from letting the faucet accidentally drop into the bowl and kind of move around up there on the deck. They're not actual chips. It's like you don't feel any sort of depression there. It's just a mark from the metal, oxide or something. But try as I might, I have not been able to get those off, so that's a bit unfortunate. So just be careful. Be careful with the faucet falling or bouncing around on your sink. What else? Yes, I did run a silicone bead back there to attach it to the wall. Probably a good idea. But in normal use, you get very little splashing around, so it's probably not critical. And even with taping, I managed to get a little ridge there. It's not perfect, but does the job. Where to next? Down, I guess. The instructions actually show somewhere. Actually suggest that you. Oh well, doesn't matter. Yeah, whatever. The instructions suggest that you run a silicone bead along there too. And really, I didn't see any point to that. All this cabinetry and countertop is sealed and waterproof. And, you'd have to have a pretty major water disaster to get any water trying to get in underneath like that. So I just didn't see any point of caulking those side joints. Plus, it just looks better. Like you don't normally see under there, but you could if you're sitting down or whatever, as you might do in a bathroom. So yeah, I just figured, nah, we don't need silicone there. As far as the sink attached to the countertop, you can of course see it's off center, which is fine. You can mount it wherever you want, and that just seemed a lot more useful because then it gives you actual useful space over here. Whereas if it's centered, neither side of the sink really has a lot of room, and it sort of centers it better in this space in the bathroom anyway, since the vanity is a bit on the right side, leaving space for the towel rack there. As far as the sink mounting goes, you'll see the instructions indicate you should fill up the ridge under the sink circumference with silicone. And I was thinking, okay, yeah, I could do that, but after watching one of the videos on YouTube, it occurred to me, okay, you do that, you could easily get some squeeze out around the rim. And the instructions don't actually show, don't suggest, making a caulking fillet around the sink edge. One of the videos on YouTube, the person installing it did. But I didn't want that because, okay, maybe if your countertop is white and you were using white silicone, that would be okay. But, any sort of caulking around this seam would look terrible, I think. So I just I was very careful about what I did with the silicone. So instead of filling up the gap fully like that, I just put a small bead around that inner circle, sort of on the corner. So it's in the gap a little bit, but it's mostly just sitting on that inner ridge. So absolutely no squeeze out, and it's perfectly secure. Yes, water can get underneath there, but like I said, really in normal use, that isn't a problem. You just don't get that much water splashing around that it's going to be a problem. Even if some does get underneath, it's no big deal. It'll just, in a day or two, it will have evaporated. So, and like I said, all the materials are waterproof, so I don't see any problem. And in fact, I didn't even use silicone under there. I used a latex caulk. I'm not sure what my thinking was. Maybe I figured if some does squeeze out, the latex would probably clean up more easily than the silicone. So that's something to think about. And it was an indoor-outdoor latex caulk, so it'll be waterproof. Moving right along. Oh yeah, I should mention that this faucet is actually defective. I'm waiting on a replacement. It works, of course, but when it's on, there's a slow leak from inside the body, and it drips down. The first time I noticed it, the drawer was in there, and noticed some water drips on the back of the drawer, and figured, this is not good. And now, if I run it, I'll get water drips around here and on the floor. So it's definitely coming from, it's not a static leak. It's fine when the faucet's off, but somehow there's some water path from the output of the mixing valve, and it's feeding back into the body and dripping down. So hopefully the replacement will be okay. As far as the drawer slides go, yes, they are the very nice ones that have a nice bumper at both ends and a soft close. As far as this latch goes, that they suggest you push in when the drawer is on there and you're all done, I honestly wouldn't bother. I've tried one. It's very hard to get back out. I mean, it's doable with a screwdriver, but I really don't see any point. Maybe if you have little kids who might come around and open the drawer and do whatever little kids do. I don't know. Maybe then it would be worthwhile. But if you're a normal person, I wouldn't bother. What else? Well, of course, the plumbing can always turn into a bit of a nightmare, and Ikea. As much as they're Ikea, they can't make everything easy. They can't turn a plumbing job into a breeze. I mean, if you're lucky and everything just happens to fit and works out well, then yeah, it's obviously not going to be too big a hassle. But plumbing can always turn into a nightmare, no matter what kind of stuff you're working with. Fortunately, in my case here, it wasn't too bad. Ikea, of course, has drawers that fill up the entire space and go fairly far back. So they're attempting more than the typical plumbing installation. They're really trying to squeeze things in there, and leaves you open to even bigger potential problems. One of the things I didn't realize, or I didn't clue in on right at first when I was just browsing the instructions, is that this drain pipe doesn't have to go straight back. It can, of course, go at any angle, and I noticed that in one of the existing YouTube videos. So yeah, you basically and this thing extends and contracts, so you can adjust the length to work with your setup. So fortunately, it managed to work out here fairly well. Goes back to the corner and comes down. Just manages to clear that hot supply, and then goes into the drain. But you can certainly imagine many situations where that you wouldn't be so lucky, and you'd have to do some sort of. I was expecting I'd have to do some major either drawer cutting to clear stuff, or replumbing, or God knows what. Fortunately, I didn't really have to. Actually, that's not entirely true. I did do a little bit on the drawer. You see the two crappy old taps, which maybe I should have changed, but they're in good enough condition, no leaks or anything, so I left them. But they are just a little bit too far forward. Just a bit. So what I'm going to do is actually remove the knobs and the screw, just leave the stem there, and at that point cutting a couple of holes in the back of that top drawer. Not even full holes, they're not through. Just a couple of recesses to clear the valve stems, and that should work just fine. Tight, but okay, if it works, it works. This crazy thing, the telescoping pipe, was a bit of a minor nightmare. First of all, there's an O-ring around the inner part. Of course, it's back around here now. That gets slid in, or I guess more around here. Yeah, that O-ring or ellipse ring is very tight fit. Plus there's that stupid clip, which doesn't really do anything useful. That I actually thought of snapping it off. You have to be really careful getting it past that clip and getting it into the bigger tube. In fact, I put olive oil or something, cooking oil, inside that entire outer tube, and it was still a really, really tight fit. And again, being careful not to damage it when you're going by that clip. So yeah, be really careful, and you should probably lubricate it when you're sliding that assembly together. Having a bit of an issue here. Well, a couple of things I'll mention. The existing pipe that was in there. What do I know from drain pipes? It was some sort of weird plastic sleeve somehow attached to the pipe further in the wall, and it doesn't quite match the drain size of the Ikea supplied unit. So I considered, trying to rework the drain or figure out some adapter or something. In the end, though, I just wrapped a dozen or so wraps of electrical tape around the Ikea pipe until it was a nice snug fit into there. And, in the past, whenever I've done a drain, it's always been totally sealed. But the previous drain here was just a pipe, just kind of friction fit into that sleeve. And in the IKEA instructions show the same thing. They just show you shoving that pipe into an existing plumbing in the wall. So I figured, okay, if it's good enough for those two cases, I guess a good, nice, snug fit with electrical tape is going to be good enough for me here. If I want to, I could still silicone around that thing if I wanted a better seal, but really it seems fine. One of the design issues with this thing, of course, is that this coupling, and again, some drains do have couplings, other ones custom installed and all plastic welded together. But yeah, like normally your water is going to be around here, your water level. And sure enough, I get a little bit of a leak. A little bit of water is coming out here. It's actually usually okay when the water is just sitting. It can dry out, but as soon as you run the water, there's enough jostling around that a little bit will leak out there. So I might have to take that apart again and see if there's anything I can do. I mean, it's really tight right now. I'm scared to tighten it any further for fear of cracking it or something. So yeah, hopefully I can solve that leak issue. That might be about it. Oh yeah, one other thing. The countertop comes with this mounting bar back here for rear reinforcement. I wasn't even going to put it in at first because the top is really solid. I figured, maybe at worst in 10 years' time, it might sag a little at the back from the weight of the sink. So I figured, okay, I'll do something. So I just glued that strip in place. I was kind of tired of messing with trying to get fasteners into the wall. So I just siliconed everything there. Now, obviously, that's not something you want to do unless you had a good solid wall like I've got here with tiles. If it was painted or something, well, either do it right with screws or figure something else out. But yeah, not a big deal. But there you go. And I think that's about it. Thanks for watching.